What's up, guys? Pro Bowl voting is now open. Today I'm going to share with you who I voted for and why. Thanks for joining me on the Blitz Report. Now, the way the Pro Bowl works is it's AFC versus NFC. So the way I done it was I voted for a even split on AFC and NFC players. You don't have to do it that way. The site is not set up like that. And if you want to go vote, I'll have the link to go vote in the description box below. So let's go ahead and jump into it. For the AFC, you're allowed to vote for 6 quarterbacks. So I voted for 3 in the AFC and 3 in the NFC. So the AFC quarterbacks I voted for: Tom Brady, of course, Alex Smith, and Marcus Mariota. I voted for Tom Brady because I know a lot of people is going to hate that because a lot of people still accuse Brady of being a cheater these days. I see it everywhere still. But there's not a lot of Pro Bowlers on his team, and he's still the number 2 seed in the entire AFC. So it just goes to show you how good Brady is. Alex Smith, he started the year out on fire, but since he's kind of fallen off a little bit, but I think he's going to pick it back up. I think he's going to get hot again. I think he's going to make a strong push from here on out. And Marcus Mariota was because I really didn't know who else to vote for in the AFC wise. I was kind of thinking maybe Ben Roethlisberger, maybe Derek Carr, but Marcus Mariota, all 3 of those guys are struggling. Marcus Mariota has the highest upside of the 3. He's the most entertaining to watch. So, of course, you can see my game day jerseys. It's game day, y'all. I don't know when you're going to be seeing this video, but it's Thursday. The Titans are taking on the Steelers tonight, so that's why I'm repping my game day jersey. So that's why I voted for Mariota, not only because I'm a fan of his, but because the other guys I could have voted for is struggling, and I believe he has the most upside and is the most entertaining to watch. And I'd like to see what he could do on a Pro Bowl roster. That would be pretty special to me. NFC wise, I voted for Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, and Matt Stafford. Carson Wentz, I'm sure you could probably see why. He's the quarterback on the best team in the NFL currently, 8-1 record. He's been on fire. Doug Peterson has done wonders for Carson Wentz. Jared Goff, it really just blows my mind the step he took from year 1 to year 2. He's on fire. It's just unreal how much he grew from year 1 to year 2. So a lot of credit to Sean McVay there for doing that. I'm sure he has a lot to do with it. Not all, but I'm sure he has a big chunk of how good Jared Goff is this year. And Matt Stafford, I think he's a very underrated quarterback. He has no running game to help his team whatsoever. He's finally got defense to help. For the last couple of years, he hasn't had much help on defense, but he's finally got some defense to help him. But he has no run game whatsoever. His wide receivers are a little bit above average to average at best. None of them are superstars. None of those wide receivers can take over a game like Megatron could. So that's why I voted for Matt Stafford. As for my running backs for the AFC wise, I voted for Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, and Kareem Hunt. Le'Veon Bell leads the league in rushing right now. He's been doing it for years, so that's really a no-brainer there. Kareem Hunt, he come into the NFL as a third-round rookie, set the league on fire. He's kind of cooled off since then, but he's still putting up big numbers, and he's soon to be the number 2 rusher in the league with Ezekiel Elliott's suspension. And Melvin Gordon, the Chargers are all struggling, but Melvin Gordon is a good running back. We saw it last season. We're seeing it this season. Although they are struggling, I feel like he does have the talent and does deserve to be on a Pro Bowl roster. As for the NFC running backs, I voted for Ezekiel Elliott, Todd Gurley, and Devonta Freeman. Ezekiel Elliott, no-brainer there, number 2 running back in the league. You see how it hurt that offense without him. Even though Tyrone Smith wasn't there as well, they was missing Ezekiel Elliott. Devonta Freeman, he can do it all. He can catch passes. He can run with power. He has that breakaway speed. He's just an all-around, all-purpose back, and that's why I voted for him. And Ty Gurley, last year he fell into his sophomore slump after a spectacular rookie season. This year he's picking it back up, and he's doing better than what he did last season, and I think he deserves to be on a Pro Bowl roster at this point as well. For the fullback, I voted for Kyle Juszczyk. I can't even pronounce that last name. It's just hard to try. San Francisco 49ers fullback. used to play with the Baltimore Ravens. He can do it all. He can run block. He can run. He can catch passes. He can pass block. He's just a good all-around fullback, and has been doing it for years. For the AFC, I voted for Tommy Bohannon, fullback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Um, I haven't seen much of him, but I have seen him. I have watched a couple of Jaguars games, and he does look like a good fullback to me. I had to dig in and do a little bit of research before I voted for fullbacks, but this is who I decided on. I think he's good enough to be on a Pro Bowl roster. For wide receivers for the AFC, I voted for Antonio Brown, AJ Green, Tyreek Hill, and DeAndre Hopkins. Antonio Brown, no brainer. He's leading the league. Sorry about that. He's leading the league as a receiver again this year. He's just constantly putting up big numbers. He doesn't have to take over a game because of the talent on their roster, but he can at any given time. Voted for AJ Green. Of course, even though the Bengals are struggling, he still has elite speed, elite size, and elite power for a wide receiver. So that's why AJ Green got my vote. Tyreek Hill, his speed is killing teams right now. So Tyreek Hill got my vote. DeAndre Hopkins, he's eating targets. He's getting targets everywhere, every which way. He's a leading targeted receiver in the NFL, and he's making the most of these opportunities. So he ended up getting my vote. As for the NFC wide receivers, I voted for Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Adam Thielen, and Michael Thomas. Julio Jones, of course, is guaranteed to be a top 2 receiver year in and year out. Mike Evans, it's just kind of apparent of how he bails Jameis Winston out. A lot of times when a receiver gets overthrown from Jameis Winston, Mike Evans has that size to go up and get it. He's been doing it for the last couple of years. Adam Thielen, man, he's just got hot this year. He's really, really hot. He's been doing it all season long, and people are just now starting to take notice of it. So Adam Thielen ended up getting my vote. And Michael Thomas, Drew Brees' #1 option. He's been making the most of it since Brandon Cooks is gone. So Michael Thomas also got my vote. As for tight ends in the AFC, I voted for Travis Kelce and Delaney Walker. Travis Kelce, he's just a mini Gronk, as what a lot of people call him now. It's just unreal how he can take over a game at the tight end position. Delaney Walker, this guy is pulling triple teams, and he's still the team's leading receiver. Defenses just can't stop Walker, and he's even ran the ball a few times. He has a rushing touchdown this year, so Delaney Walker gets my vote. He can do it all. He's a very underrated tight end. Same could be said for Gronk. I didn't vote for Gronk because of injury concerns, and he's not featured as much in that offense as he has been in the past. So Gronk just narrowly missed my vote. He would have got it if I didn't do an even split, but I did. So moving on to my NFC tight ends, I voted for Jimmy Graham and Jason Witten. Jimmy Graham is a touchdown machine this year, still doing it. He's finally healthy again. I got him on my fantasy team. He's one of the very few bright spots on my fantasy team. Jason Witten, although he's not putting up the numbers he used to put up, he's a very important part of that offense. He's a leader. He gets in there and blocks. He catches the underneath passes, and he's somewhat of a security blanket for Dak Prescott. So for that reason, Jason Witten gets my vote. Going on to the tackles. For the AFC tackles, I voted for Taylor Lewan, Marcus Cannon, and Donald Penn. Taylor Lewan, of course, it was an easy decision, not only because I'm a Titans fan, he's the best tackle in the AFC. Marcus Cannon, I voted for him because he's gone head-to-head with Von Miller twice. He didn't play in the last game when they played the Broncos because he was hurt, but he's gone head-to-head with Von Miller twice. He hasn't allowed a sack, he hasn't allowed a hurry, and he hasn't allowed a quarterback hit going head-to-head with Von Miller twice. And if you can do that twice, I think you should be in the Pro Bowl. Donald Penn, of course, he's a very good tackle. He's allowed very, very few sacks. I can't remember where he ranked in the league. It could have been top in the league, but very few sacks. And I wish they don't have it split on the NFL Pro Bowl voting website. I wish they would have had it split between left tackles and right tackles, but they don't. So Marcus Cannon is a right tackle. Donald Penn and Taylor Lewan are both left tackles. But moving on to my NFC Pro Bowl voting, I voted for David Beckhethria, tackle for the Green Bay Packers, Tyrone Smith, tackle for the Dallas Cowboys, and Lane Johnson, tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson can just do it all. He has been for the last few years. Tyrone Smith, you've seen how bad they need him whenever the Falcons played them this past Sunday. The Cowboys need Tyrone Smith. Dak Prescott was sacked. I don't know how many times, but it was a bunch. I know it was at least 6 because Claiborne had 6 sacks. I don't know if anybody else had any more, but I know he was sacked at least 6 times, and that was in large part to Tyrone Smith being out. And David Bakethria, however you say his name. There's a lot of these names that I can't pronounce whenever you don't hear them too often. So I voted for him. He's young. He's been playing at a high level. So let's see what he can do against Pro Bowl competition. I felt like that was a good, solid vote as well. Moving on to the guards. For the AFC, I voted for David DeCastro, Richie Incognito, and Kelsey Asamala, however you say his name as well. Some of these names are ridiculously hard to pronounce. But anyways, all of these guys have been in the league for years. All of them are leaders on their offensive line. All of them are some of the best at what they do. Kelsey Asamwa, however you say his name, he was a high profile free agent a couple of years ago, and he's one of the few who panned out for the Oakland Raiders to make that offensive line very, very good. Moving on to the NFC, I voted for Zach Martin, Alex Boone of the Arizona Cardinals, and Andrew Norwell of the Carolina Panthers. Zach Martin's a no-brainer. He's been getting in there and dominating guys ever since he entered the league a few years ago. Alex Boone for the Arizona Cardinals. He's one of the few bright spots on that Arizona Cardinals offensive line, so he earned my vote. Andrew Norwell is a very underrated player on the Carolina Panthers, so he also got my vote. As for the centers, for the AFC, I voted for Rodney Hudson of the Oakland Raiders and Mitch Morse of the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, that offensive line is very, very good there in Oakland. Rodney Hudson is the leader of that offensive line. The center gets everyone lined up and kind of makes sure everybody knows what their assignments are. Quarterback gets everybody else lined up, but the center is the leader of the offensive line. Mitch Morse for the Kansas City Chiefs. You just seen how important he was whenever he missed that game. I can't remember which exactly team it was that they played whenever he missed, but I remember them talking about him being out, and boy, it was terrible for the Chiefs. They was getting a lot of penetration up the middle on that offensive line. Snaps were being snapped at the wrong time. They was going over Alex Smith's head. So you just see how important Mitch Morse is to that Kansas City Chiefs offensive line. As for the NFC, I voted for Travis Frederick of the Dallas Cowboys. Again, very, very good center, very good offensive line, of course. And Alex Mack of the Atlanta Falcons, very good center as well. At least that's what Madden tells me. That's one of the very few that I had to use Madden ratings on. But according to Madden, Alex Mack should be in the Pro Bowl. Defensive end, moving over to the defense. For the AFC side, I voted for Joey Bosa, Calais Campbell, and Khalil Mack. Of course, all these guys are very talented. Calais Campbell leads the league in sacks currently. Joey Bosa has been dominating offensive tackles since he got in the league last year. And Khalil Mack, he's one of the very few. There's very few people in the NFL as talented as this guy, and it just translates over. His year's kind of going down, but he's still having a solid year for the average NFL player. But for him, it's kind of an off year. Moving over to the NFC, I voted for Martellus Bennett, Everson Griffin, and Ezekiel Anza. Martellus Bennett, he's been doing it for years, getting at quarterbacks, rushing quarterbacks, hitting quarterbacks. So no-brainer there. He's been doing it for years. Everson Griffin plays for the Vikings, and he is very underrated. He should be considered one of those elite pass rushers in the NFL, but his name isn't recognized like some of the others. And Ezekiel Anza, been on a very talented Detroit Lions defensive line for the Detroit Lions. Boy, that was hard to get out for the last couple of years, and he's having a solid year this year. So I thought I would go ahead and give him my vote as well. Defensive tackle for the AFC, I voted for Geno Atkins, Danny Shelton, and Ndamukong Suh. Geno Atkins and Ndamukong Suh is kind of obvious why they've been dominating for years. Danny Shelton, he plays in a terrible Cleveland Browns defense, but he's a very good defensive tackle. He's been doing it for a couple of years now. He's very, very underrated. He's one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and a lot of that has to do with the team he plays on. For the NFC defensive tackles, I voted for Fletcher Cox, Mike Daniels, and Aaron Donald. Fletcher Cox and Aaron Donald should be kind of obvious as well because of how good they've been. They're both big names. Mike Daniels plays a very important role on that Green Bay Packers defense, and I would even argue that he's the best player on that Green Bay Packers defense. He's always coming at you with a high motor. He can get penetration up the middle. He can stuff run gaps. He can get after the quarterback. So I think he is highly underrated. Moving on to inside linebacker, for the AFC, I put probably two of the biggest rivals in the NFL together. For the AFC with C.J. Mosley and Ryan Shazier, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens. Both of them. C.J. Mosley is kind of a run stuffer. You're not going to get by him, but he can also do other things in coverage. Ryan Shazier, you're not going to find a more athletic linebacker in the NFL than Ryan Shazier. I think he ran a 4.4 coming out of the combine a couple of years ago, but he's been very solid for that Steelers defense. Moving on to the NFC, I voted for Luke Kuechly and Jared Davis. Luke Kuechly is kind of obvious. Jared Davis is a rookie. He's the leader of that Detroit Lions defense, and he's been pretty good. He's been very good actually. And I think going to the Pro Bowl and playing beside or under Luke Kuechly will really help him. So I think I've mainly voted for him for the experience, but he's also a very good young linebacker as well. Moving on to outside linebacker for the AFC, I voted for Von Miller, Justin Houston, and TJ Watt. Von Miller, Justin Houston is kind of obvious, although Justin has dealt with injuries here the last couple of years, but he's come back and he's playing very solid this year, even dropping back into coverage. TJ Watt, he's been doing it all, man. He's been stuffing the run, he's been getting after the quarterback, and he's even dropped back into coverage and deflected several passes. As for the NFC side on the outside linebackers, I voted for Sean Lee of the Dallas Cowboys. I voted for Chandler Jones of the Arizona Cardinals. Those two should kind of be obvious. And I voted for Shaq Thompson of the Carolina Panthers. And man, I really, really like Shaq Thompson. He's probably close to one of my favorite players in the NFL. He plays outside linebacker, but he's kind of like that perfect mix of a hybrid safety. He can cover slot receivers and run with them for step. He can attack the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle and bend that edge to get to the quarterback. He can set the edge in the run. He can penetrate in the middle of that offensive line to rush the quarterback. There's really nothing this guy can't do on the defensive side of the ball, and I really like him, and I really like how the Panthers are using him. As for quarterbacks in the AFC, I voted for Jalen Ramsey, Marcus Peters, Chris Harris, and Artie Burns. Jalen Ramsey, Marcus Peters, and Chris Harris should be pretty obvious. They're all three big names, very good cornerbacks in the league. They have been for the last couple of years. Artie Burns is another player I feel like is very, very underrated. He has the size and the athleticism. When the Pittsburgh Steelers took him in the first round, a lot of people thought that they reached for him, but he's been shutting dudes down this year, not completely shutting them down, but he's been better than what a lot of people thought they was, and he's been one of the better cornerbacks in the league these last couple of years since he was drafted. I believe it was in 2016, might have been 2015, but I think it was 2016. But he's just been very, very solid for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Moving on to the NFC side, I voted for Patrick Peterson, Xavier Rhodes, Darius Slay, and Marshawn Lattimore. Patrick Peterson and Xavier Rhodes should be kind of obvious. Darius Slay is another player that I feel like is very underrated, but having a very good year. Marshawn Lattimore, I scouted this guy. He was my favorite cornerback coming out of this year's draft. It was pick number 11 overall, the first cornerback off the board. And I told y'all that if he can stay healthy, he will be a Pro Bowler, and he has proven that, and he did get my vote because he has proven it, not just because I said it, but because he has proven it. For strong safety, for the AFC side, I voted for TJ McDonald. He plays for the Miami Dolphins. He's a ball hawking strong safety. He plays the run well. He's been hurt, but he come back, and even though the Dolphins got blew out by the Panthers, he had a very solid game. He come close to getting a pick on Cam Newton, and he had 4 picks in 2 days of practice before that game. On the NFC side, I voted for Landon Collins, even though the Giants are terrible this year. Landon Collins is still a once-in-a-generational type of talented player at the strong safety position, so that should be pretty obvious. For the free safeties, I voted for Kevin Byard for AFC. He leads the league in interceptions right now, He leads the league in pass deflects right now, and he's very good in the run game as well. Very underrated. There's a lot of people that don't even know his name. There's a lot of people in his division, fans in his division, rival division fans who don't know who he is, but they're going to know very soon. For the NFC, I voted for Harrison Smith. Again, kind of obvious. He's been dominating that position in the league for the last several years. For kicker on the NFC side, I picked Jake Elliott. For the AFC side, I picked Stephen Ganikowski. For returner, I picked Adoree Jackson for the AFC. I was going to pick Tyreek Hill there, but I already had him in for the wide receiver, so I went ahead and plugged Adoree Jackson in there. For a returner on the NFC side, I went Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers. For punter, I picked Brett Kern. He just got a drug test last week because he booted a 74-yard punt from his own end zone. He was standing in his end zone when he kicked it, and it hit somewhere behind the 25 or at the 26 or something like that. But anyways, it rolled into the end zone for a touchdown, and the league immediately drug tested him after that game. And Andy Lee of the Arizona Cardinals, I just kind of recognized that name whenever I did the voting there. For special teamers, I picked Budda Baker from the Arizona Cardinals because I just recognize the name. I don't know exactly what they're going to be doing. And Anthony Levine from the Baltimore Ravens. I picked those guys because I recognize the name. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you watching. Hope y'all have a great day. Be sure to leave a like if you like the content. The link will be below if you want to go vote. My Twitter link will also be there. Hope you guys have a great day. And be sure to subscribe if you like the content. I have a lot of big things coming in the off season that don't matter who you're a fan of, you're going to like it. So I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks for watching.